Great. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Um, we can do a quick roll call. I think we are all present except for Ashley and Councillor Shell. Is that correct? Great. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. So we've got one change to the agenda. We have been advised that the representative from Easter Seals is unable to join us today, so that will be removed from the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the agenda as amended? Kathy and Cease. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes, and could I have a mover and a seconder if there are no discussion points on that? Anyone want to move or second that minutes? Walt and Anne, thank you. All in favor? It's carried. So we have no Easter Seals deputation today. So we're zooming straight down to new business with some nice news on the Stopgap Foundation. I don't know, Anne, I've got your name down here. Do you have something to update us on at all? Okay. Oh, that's right. You need a microphone.
No, I have no updates.
Okay, great. I have an update. So as promised, I wrote or I got in contact with CEO Dyke regarding if and how we may be able to join Stopgap to get some interesting ramps going in the county, how difficult that might be. And I'll just read it out because it's a very short email return that I received. He says, yes, it is possible. The committee would make a recommendation for participation, blah, 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 you know the word I'm trying to say, participation in the program to council, including any associated costs and staff resource requirements. If approved by council, the committee, supported by Sue, would then function as the partnership link between the county and the foundation. And there are previous examples out there of where this has happened, so there's really no new design for partnership required here. It's about abiding by previous models adopted. So there's really no challenge with us moving ahead with that, should the committee so wish, at which point we would simply make a recommendation to council to make it so. And is there anything you wanted to add, Sue, to that?
No, I don't think so. I think just coming forward, I think there's a lot of value to people coming forward to this committee to talk to us about their programs, their projects, share with us, not just for us as the committee, but also because we then have a recording that we can share within the community for those who are interested in these projects and programs. So I think there's a lot of value to that. And I think there's a lot of value to the Stopgap Foundation program as well. So just really appreciative to the committee members who have brought that forward and have been working on it so diligently.
Yeah, no, that's great. Benin, do you have anything to add to that? Because this very much came from you, and we'd love to hear if you have any further thoughts.
Well, no, I'm just grateful that we're able to take this forward, that there's no initial difficulties that we can have as a county to be able to push this forward, because quite often when you try to establish new partnerships, there's a lot of red tape that you got to go around.
Yeah, our tape is less red and more lengthy. These things just tend to take a little bit of time to go through all the hoops, but it's tape that we can see the end of, which is really, really nice. So with that, unless there are any dissenters, I would look for a mover to recommend that we participate in the program Or now we don't have associated costs and staff requirements, so maybe we are not able to make that recommendation yet. At this stage, would we just go out for further information with the intention at next meeting of making formal motion? I guess that's probably how we would do it. Yeah, that sounds about right. I guess we'll require someone to lead on that conversation. I don't know if that would be you or, yeah.
I'm happy to do that, certainly, to find out some of those answers. And then I can see if I can, yeah, I can find out some of those answers and then also see if I might invite them to the next meeting to explain further, because I suspect that even when we have the answers that we need, we might still have more questions.
Right. So from members of the committee for now, are there any initial questions that you would like to see, perhaps beyond the really obvious ones? Are there any initial thoughts or questions that we'd want to front that conversation with from your perspective? Or yeah, and no, hit it again. Yeah.
No, but I think it's a great idea to have them coming in. I think that would be really helpful. And I'll make sure that when I know they're coming in, that I have a list of questions for them.
Okay, great. Great. So that would be wonderful as a next step to bring them in, and we'll all be a bit prepared. And if it's possible to get them in for the next meeting, then that would be great. I'd certainly be curious to know, how quickly we might be able to get started once all of the agreements are signed, and when we can start seeing some outreach and action, and what our role will be in that, and all of those things. It's pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so I guess there's no resolution at this stage regarding that. The direction has been given. 11.2 is discussion regarding future agenda items. We've been meeting now for a while, and we've had a number of people come in and speak to us, representatives from the townships as they're looking to have projects completed. And I think the intention here is to see what other things in addition to those initiatives we might want to consider, or what other people we might want to invite, or what else we might want to do. Does that summarize more or less the intention here?
Yeah, I believe so. So I'm happy to help reach out to people who I come across when I think that there might be something of value to this committee, or something that we might learn from or be able to take forward. But really interested to hear from the committee if there's any topic that you think we need to make sure that we add to a future agenda. Any particular guest speaker to come to speak to us, if there's anything that you would like to ensure that this meeting is really led by you and really captures what you would like to see happen in this community.
Yes, Anne.
I think it would be helpful to have somebody, I don't know if there's a lawyer that you have on staff here, or somebody to tell us come 2025 exactly what is going to be required of people, because I know we all know generally what's going to be required, but the nuances of it all. An example of this was there's not a lot of captioning on Instagram, and I had a conversation with one of the local people, local organizations here about whether they have to do it or not. And of course it's on a website, so it should be captioned, but I mean, it would be nice to have somebody that we could maybe ask a few questions of from a legal standpoint with the new legislation.
Yeah, we can certainly take that back. We don't have in-house legal counsel, so I think we'd have to run that by the CEO as an initial gate to see how that might occur. But we'll definitely take that back and investigate what we can do. It's a good one. Ben, I see your hand is up.
Yes, so what I was thinking of is, given what we just discussed, the new rules will be implied for 2025. What if we got in members of Community Living Trent Highlands to discuss creating more employment opportunities for members of the disabled community in 2025, and also something that we can do to kind of make it easier for members of the community during the winter months? Because from where I am in Minden, I tend to be pretty much closed in during the wintertime due to the sidewalks and stuff like that.
Right, right. So would the Trent Winds, is that what you,
No, community living Trent Highlands.
Trent Highlands. Okay, I misheard. Would they be able to discuss both of those points, or are those two separate points in your mind?
I
Would
think
they have insight on outside accessibility and things like that that our Public Works Department might benefit from listening to, or do you see that as a separate conversation?
that might be a separate conversation, but I
Okay.
think it's worth having them come in to discuss both points.
Okay. Okay, so those are good, very good ideas. Yes, Kathy.
Um, when we had the last meeting where we talked about what Algonquin Highlands is doing for their accessibility for the new park, it really triggered something in my mind. And I walked the river walk here in town and watched a gentleman in a motorized scooter trying to go fishing. And quite honestly, he maneuvered down a very steep hill right up to the river. And if it was me, I would have been in the river. And he wanted a place to go fishing. And it really was an eye opener because exact same day, how do we go back, or is there feasibility to look at the or the trail groupings and say, can we look at what is existing and what else can be done to make it better? Because I think here in Minden, there needs to be a place for people who are in motorized scooters, because that's how you get around to go fishing. How else do you go fishing in Haliburton County?
And enjoy nature in
Yeah.
general, I would say, even beyond the fishing question. That's interesting because there are neighboring townships, I think of Huntsville, which is one of my closest neighbors, where there's a beautiful access point right on the water, which is completely accessible. In Algonquin Park, there's a couple of actually three really beautiful accessible trails. I'm not sure I could even answer the question about what we've got in terms of that in the county of Haliburton, which is an indicator that we're not focused sufficiently on it. Indeed, yeah.
So would the next step be to discuss how people can be brought in as advocates for it, so that if something's going on, here's an advocate from the accessibility committee to ask questions? For me, I have to go back now to I think it's the local group that made the river walk and say, have you considered this? Because it's a good idea and I don't think it's going to cost that much money, just it needs to be done.
Any thoughts from staff on what a bouncing ball might look like?
So we do in the county have some spaces that are accessible. I wonder if it might be of interest to welcome some of the municipal staff who manage those properties and help implement some of those spaces to come in and talk with us about what that looks like. And specifically what accessible recreation looks like in Haliburton County. That's not to say that we couldn't invite staff in to speak to the other spaces as well, but what does it look like? I know that, for example, at Snowden Park, there's an accessible viewing space. And then maybe that discussion leads us to the action of, well, how do we promote that more so that people who live here, as well as visitors from away, know how to access what we have here in the community. So yeah, I'm happy to reach out to them to see if perhaps we could have everyone assemble on the same date to talk about some of the features that exist and talk about what some of the possibilities might be. I think they might welcome that opportunity as well to speak to this committee to hear about some of the ideas that the committee might have about what you've seen elsewhere or what you've noticed in the community that might be missing.
Cease.
One of the challenges that we've had too, and the hard part of it is, because I'll give you an example of trying to make our boat launches more accessible. And because they're used for multiple purpose reasons. Some as simple as just putting your boat in the water, which is obviously what they're designed to do, but some of them for swimming and for various other types of things. The problem with it is the topographical situation that exists with the boat launches that we have at the moment. Some of them are very sandy, some of them are very rocky, some of them are steep, some of them different. However, what we have decided to do, at least our initial plan, is that when we build Hurley Park, which is building it from scratch, we're going to make every effort that we can to accommodate as much accessibility restriction, regardless of whether it's sight, whether it's mobility, or whatever it might be. But it all boils down to what exactly is the activity that you're trying to capture and make accessible versus the overall opportunity for participation. Would it attract a large number of people that have a specific challenge? And secondly, but not the greatest, is obviously the cost. Because as soon as you get into having to completely redo the front of something, especially if it's a boat launch, and you got the transsubmarine to work with, because they seem to regulate the water whenever they feel like it. So you got a high water and a low water, and try to make that to the point where it can be universally used, almost becomes an unbelievable challenge. But if anybody has any advice as to how we can go or who we can contact to see what we can do about it, even if we only made it accessible during high water, because low water, I don't think anybody gets access to it, regardless of how mobile or immobile you are, because usually there's so much mud and crap that you're not going to go there anyway. But if anybody has any insight into that, I know our municipality would love to have more information about it.
Ben, do you have your hand up again, or is that
Yes.
from before? You do? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't have insight into those things, but one thing I would like to possibly suggest is that we get someone in, because I tried going down a trail once to go around town to a different area, and I could not go by myself because it was filled with potholes. So I'm wondering if there's a way we can either get someone in to, I don't know, somehow preserve the trail but fill it in, because there are dirt trails. You don't want to get caught in a pothole by yourself and then get stuck. Or at the same time, maybe we could get someone to increase kind of signage. So, like, if you get stuck on a trail, you know where you are.
Right. I think that all could wrap into the conversation with staff members about accessibility on trails in general. The extension of them, the maintenance of them. I think we could cover that in the conversation that it sounds like we can arrange, or we might try to arrange it. That would be a nice way of filling that out for sure. It's a good one. The idea that I have, which I imagine would require some homework, is I would love to know if there are best practice rural communities out there who have found the silver bullet in any manner of speaking. So have they figured out a financing model? Have they figured out a public works model? Like, what is there a best practice community out there that this committee could look at for some interesting novel ideas on all of the things that we've discussed, and specifically within the municipal system of governance? Are there townships that are award winning for accessibility that are rural? And by rural, of course, I mean small towns like Minden. I don't just mean farming communities. Minden, Haliburton, absolutely be there, but not cities with their multi-millions of dollars of tax money. I don't know. Maybe that's one of the topics that we could all research and have a conversation about. But I'd like to see if those exist. I'm sure they do. That would be one. Any other topics that we might want to cover in the coming months?
It's not a new topic, it's an old one, and maybe it's because I'm having a senior moment, in which case that's accessibility to memory is being restricted. We had a checklist for new projects coming in which by the idea was that we would present that to an agency that wants to come in and build something in our county. And they would be able to go through it and check off the things that that we would consider as important to accessibility, and have they dealt with them, yes or no. I know that we had a sample from another municipality. Did we ever finish that, and have we built a process that gets issued? I don't have that because my memory's probably lost it.
No, that's okay. So we did discuss that at the last meeting. We just needed to make some changes to the imperial measurements, and then it's going to come forward to county council for their information. And then can come back to this committee if need be, or we can discuss where it goes next.
Okay.
Any other thoughts for that list? I think that's already a good, almost a year's, probably a year's worth of topics right there, considering we don't meet every month. So that's pretty substantive. Sue, are you comfortable taking those away and thinking through how we might integrate them into our?
Yeah, absolutely. However, I'm always happy and willing to receive phone calls, texts, emails if there's further thoughts after this meeting, or if you come across something that you think, oh, this, happy to receive that as well, and then we can bring it forward at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Superb. Now, we've got next on our agenda the 2025 meeting schedule, because we're soon coming to the end of 2024. Is that something that you would like to share?
So, I'll go over this is a draft schedule, I suppose. So feel free to check your calendars, or let me know if any of these meeting dates would not work. But according to the procedural bylaw, the Accessibility Committee meetings must take place bi-monthly on the second Wednesday of the month. So the first meeting of the month, typically. Those dates are February 12th, April 9th, June 11th, August 13th, October 8th, and December 10th. I see you scrolling furiously. I apologize for that. So it's basically February, April, June, August, October, and December.
Second Wednesday
Second Wednesday of the month.
of every other month, yeah.
Mhm. February, April, June, August, October, and December.
We'll circulate that, certainly.
Mhm.
But it's following the same routine as we've been doing thus far, I think.
Yeah, as best as possible. Again, that's sometimes there might be a longer county council meeting in the morning, or something happens that means we might need to reschedule, but at least knowing what's happening next year, we can send out an email to get it into everybody's inbox and calendar, and it's a little easier to plan in advance, knowing when the next meeting will take place.
Mhm.
So is that from 1 till 3?
Same time. Same bat time, same bat place.
Is 1 o'clock when we typically meet, or is it 2? No, I guess it is typically 1, isn't it? Yeah, it's just 2 that, okay. Yeah. And I guess that is a good opportunity to ask if there are any dates that you know you're going to be away. If you would let us know in advance, because there is always that quorum issue. I'm off on August the 13th. I know I won't be around, but you don't have to declare now. That's not the intention. But if you already know there are days, do let us know. February, you're not in? Okay. Ben, I see your hands up.
Yes, I'm just asking about why it's a bi-monthly rule, because I tend to, for me, it's like, okay, we go to one meeting, read the agenda, we talk about everything, and then a month goes by and you get busy with life, and then we go to the next meeting, I completely forgot everything we talked about.
Yeah, I hear you. One important thing is that we can always call a special meeting if there are things that we feel we need to tackle with a bit more urgency, we can always get together more often. So the procedural bylaw sets the minimum, not the maximum. So for example, even stopgap, if that's something that we're able to maybe pick up right away, then we could certainly consider meeting before in order to try to kickstart our action there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the minutes are typically available after meetings. I find they always help me to remember what was said at the last meeting. And also don't hesitate to check in as well if there's something that you have on your mind, you forget if we discussed it at the last, we can all work together and put our brains together to figure out where we're going next.
Okay.
So unless there are further thoughts on that, Ben, are you happy if we keep the current schedule and then agree to hold special meetings whenever we need in order to accelerate things as we've got things to accelerate? Is that a good compromise on your concern?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just also like, just because of the gap, the length of time in between, and then you never know what weather's gonna do for us, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true as well. Okay. Great. So next on our docket then. Oh yes, we've got some really lovely news regarding the AAC board that was installed.
We do. So, Travis at the back there, I did send you an email with some photos if you're able to share those just throughout this update. So, after many, many years, the Park Communication Board project, the first boards were installed just within the last few weeks in Dysart in 2 locations. So they are this one here, this is going to, speaking of jogging your memory a bit, this one here is installed at Rotary Beach Park in Haliburton. And then the other board is installed at Head Lake Park in Haliburton. So those are the parks adjoining. They're connected to each other. So they have 2 boards installed. The Accessibility Committee had reserved some funds for 1 board, and Dysart staff was able to acquire some accessibility funding to put in a 2nd board. So this is the board that was created. We worked with Joe MacArthur from MacArt Designs and also Andrea Mueller from Dysart staff. As you know, we consulted with all kinds of different agencies and organizations, including 5 counties, March of Dimes, Community Living. We consulted numerous times with this amazing committee to offer feedback, as well as AAC users and educators, literacy experts from throughout the province to determine what best practices might be. So the board has been installed. I don't have a photo of my family's visit to it, but I can confirm that certainly for my daughter using her wheelchair, she was able to reach all of the symbols, including up at the top. So it's at a really good location, certainly for kids using wheelchairs. And I believe the same would be true of more adult-sized wheelchairs as well. But welcoming everyone to go check those out. And we will put out a press release within the next few weeks to let folks know that they're in the community, they're installed, they're able to be used by anybody, as well as linking to a communication board website on the county site. That's accessible on the board through a QR code, but will also be shared within the community and on the county website. And it just gives some information about the boards, the projects, how they can be used, and other information for people who might not have access to augmentative and alternative communication, but might want to learn more for personal or professional use. So yeah, I just wanted to share some of these photos on a blue sky day so that you could see them in action.
That's great. It's so lovely to see real things coming to fruition that actually impact people's lives. It's always good to improve policies and things like that, but when you've got something physical that someone can touch and use and feel good about in their life, that's a different kind of joy altogether. So thank you so much for showing us that.
No worries. And just as a reminder, the next steps are to share this board design with member municipalities to install one in a park in the other 3 member municipalities as well.
Super. Thank you. The joint accessibility plan update. I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to take a peek at that. And is there something that you wanted to talk to us about?
Yeah, so this is the multi-year plan that you reviewed quite extensively last year. So as always, on an annual basis, we check in again with the lower tier municipalities to take a look at the plan and update it. This is not the updated version. So the updated version will come to the December meeting, but I just wanted to let you know that I have reached out to staff at each of the member municipalities. They will be sharing any projects that have been completed, any new projects that might have been added throughout the year as potentially emerging issues have come to light. And so I can bring that back to at the December meeting.
Great. Yes, Cease.
Just have a question. It's that time of the year, so we're all talking about money. So at the end of the day, does the accessibility committee have a budget line, or do we draw from another group, or do we go on special projects as and when they come up?
I believe historically we've gone on special projects as they've come up. So we do have the funding in reserves for the AAC board project. That was approved in 2019, I believe. But other items would need to come to this committee to discuss, as well as county council, I believe.
So there's real no budget at this point in time to say, okay, the accessibility committee has $5,000 for 2025.
Yeah,
It's
only,
strictly an item to item basis.
that's right. So only the reserves currently in place.
So we'll look forward to seeing that when it comes back and it's a fully revised version. I imagine there won't be too many changes, but who knows? We'll see what.
We'll see, we'll see. And then following that, as last year, we just created from the items that we removed from the list because they were completed, we added those to the accomplishments document that's attached. And we post that on websites, both at the county level and at the member municipalities as well, to show that the projects that have been completed in this year.
Super. Great. Well, that is all we've got for today because we did unfortunately miss out on our presentation from Easter Seals. Hopefully we'll be able to schedule that in at another time. And while it's a short meeting, I think it's a good one. I really like the discussion we've had on future agenda items. I think that helps to flesh out what we can do in the future. I'm delighted that we've got a go ahead for stopgap. And I think this is one of those, as I say, one of those occasions where let's see what comes back. But instead of waiting 2 whole months, if there is a rationale to bring them in a little bit earlier, or if there's something that we might get done before too much snow hits the ground, or who knows, then why don't we consider coming back and chatting about that partnership in between to follow up on Ben's thought there too about the length of time between the meetings. So let's just see what comes back, I think, on that. Are there any other thoughts or comments for the minute? Well, that's great. So our next meeting date is December the 11th. And then at that point, we might even have a couple of different presentations depending on who is able to come in from the list that we've amalgamated for today. Lovely. So if I could have a motion to adjourn. Ben, please. Thanks. And a seconder. And all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Walt.